When my daughter opened that refrigerator door and screamed, I knew the truth had finally found its way home. But let me start from the beginning. Because this story, my story, didn't begin with a scream. It began with trust. The kind of trust only a mother can have for her child. The kind that makes you blind to things you should have seen coming. My name is Margaret, and for 37 years I worked as a school cafeteria manager. Not glamorous work, I know, but it was honest. Every morning at 5, I'd wake up to the sound of my old alarm clock, the one with the bells that rattled like loose teeth. I'd make my coffee in the same chipped mug my late husband gave me, the one that said "World's Best Mom" in fading letters, and I'd head to work, where I'd serve hot meals to children who sometimes had nothing else to eat that day. I never made much money, but I was careful. Every paycheck, I put a little aside, $10 here, $20 there, sometimes just $5. Over the years, those small amounts added up. By the time I retired last spring, I had saved enough for a modest pension and a small nest egg, enough to live comfortably. Enough to not be a burden to anyone. My daughter Claire was my whole world. After her father passed when she was 12, it had been just the two of us. I watched her grow from a shy, grieving girl into a confident young woman. She got married at 26 to a man named Derek, charming, always smiling, always talking about his next big opportunity. They had a nice apartment in the city, about an hour's drive from my small house in the suburbs. Claire visited every Sunday, like clockwork. She'd bring pastries from that bakery on 5th Street, the one that smelled like butter and cinnamon from a block away. We'd sit at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped her with homework and wiped away her tears after her first heartbreak. We'd talk about everything: her job at the marketing firm, her friends, sometimes Derek's latest business venture that never quite seemed to take off. I should have noticed when the visits became different. It started small. 3 months ago, maybe 4, Claire began mentioning money more often. Nothing alarming at first, just casual comments about how expensive everything had become. Rent, groceries, gas. I understood. The world was getting more expensive, and young people were struggling. I'd been young once too, counting pennies, making soup stretch across 3 meals. "Mom," she said one Sunday in late August, stirring her coffee slowly, "how do you manage your pension? Isn't it hard?" I remember smiling at her concern. "Oh, honey, I'm fine. I learned a long time ago how to make things work. I don't need much." She nodded, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite read. Something that made me uncomfortable for just a moment before I pushed the feeling away. The following week, she asked if I'd ever thought about traveling. Traveling? I laughed, wiping crumbs from the table. "Where would I go?" "I don't know," she said, looking out my kitchen window at the small garden where I grew tomatoes and basil. "You worked so hard your whole life, Mom. Don't you want to see something? Do something for yourself?" The question sat with me after she left. That night, lying in bed, I thought about all the places I'd never seen. Paris, Rome, even just the Grand Canyon. But those were dreams for other people. People with money. People who hadn't spent decades making sure there was always enough for their child's school clothes, for her college textbooks, for her wedding. 2 weeks later, Claire came over on a Wednesday. Unusual. She never came on Wednesdays. She was different that day. Her hands moved constantly, touching her hair, adjusting her bracelet, picking at her thumbnail. Derek wasn't with her, which was also strange. He usually came along, filling the space with his loud laugh and stories about clients and deals. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something," she said. We sat down at the kitchen table. I remember the afternoon light coming through the window, making her hair look like spun gold, just like when she was little. "Derek and I have been struggling," she began, her voice quiet. "His business partner pulled out of their latest project. We're behind on rent, behind on everything, really." My heart clenched. "Oh, sweetheart, why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I knew you'd worry. And I know you don't have much either." She looked down at her hands, and I saw tears forming in her eyes. "But Mom, we're in real trouble. The landlord is threatening eviction. We might lose everything." What would any mother do? I reached across the table and took her hands in mine. "How much do you need?" She hesitated. "I hate to ask. I really do. But, could you lend us $5,000? Just until Derek gets this new contract he's been working on. We'll pay you back, I promise, as soon as things stabilize." $5,000. It was more than half of what I had saved in my emergency fund. Money I'd put aside for unexpected medical bills, for house repairs, for the uncertain future that comes with age. But this was my daughter, my only child, and she was crying at my kitchen table, telling me she might lose her home. Of course, I heard myself say. Of course, I'll help you. The relief on her face was immediate. She stood up and hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. Thank you, Mom. Thank you so much. You're saving our lives. The next day, I went to the bank. It was a Thursday morning, and the autumn air had that crisp bite that reminded me winter was coming. I'd need to get my furnace checked soon. I thought absently as I walked through the heavy glass doors. The teller was a young woman named Sandra, who always remembered my name. Mrs. Patterson. She smiled. How can I help you today? I need to withdraw $5,000, please. Her smile faltered slightly. That's quite a bit. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, I assured her. Just helping my daughter with something? She processed the withdrawal, and I watched the numbers on my account statement shrink. 30 years of careful saving, reduced in minutes. But when I thought of Claire's tearful face, the fear in her eyes, I knew I'd made the right choice. That Sunday, Claire came over with Derek. He shook my hand firmly, his grip almost too tight. Mrs. Patterson, I can't thank you enough. This means everything to us. I promise you'll have every penny back within 3 months. My new contract is basically guaranteed. It's all right, Derek, I said, though something about his smile made me uneasy. It was too bright, too practiced. Family helps family. Claire hugged me again before they left. I love you, Mom. I don't know what we'd do without you. I watched them drive away in Derek's BMW, a car that seemed too expensive for people who couldn't pay rent, and pushed away the small voice of doubt, whispering, in the back of my mind. 3 months passed. Then for every Sunday, Claire still came over with pastries. We still sat at the kitchen table, but when I gently asked about repayment, she always had a reason. Derek's contract got delayed, just another few weeks. We had an unexpected expense with the car. His business partner's situation got complicated. I never pushed. What kind of mother demands money from her struggling child? So I tightened my own budget. I stopped buying the good coffee and switched to the store brand. I kept the heat lower than usual. I told myself it was temporary. Then came February. Claire arrived on a Sunday with an energy I hadn't seen in months. Her eyes were bright, her cheeks flushed with excitement. Mom, I have the most amazing news. She practically bounced into my kitchen. Derek finally closed a huge deal, and we want to celebrate. We're going on a trip. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. A trip. Yes, to Hawaii. Can you believe it? We've both been so stressed, and we deserve this. 2 weeks in Maui. We leave next Friday. I stood there, holding my coffee mug, trying to process her words. That's wonderful, honey. But what about what? The money you borrowed. I thought once Derek's business improved. Claire's expression shifted, not to guilt or embarrassment, but to something harder. Defensive. Mom, this trip is necessary. For Derek's mental health. He's been under so much pressure. Besides, his parents are helping us pay for it. It's a gift. His parents are paying for a vacation to Hawaii, but you can't repay the $5,000 you borrowed from your mother, who lives on a pension. The words came out sharper than I intended. I saw Claire's jaw tighten. I can't believe you're being like this. I thought you wanted to help us. I thought you cared about my happiness. Of course, I care about your happiness. But Claire, you know what? I thought you'd be happy for me, but I guess I was wrong. She grabbed her purse. I need to go. I have a lot to do before the trip. She left without the usual hug, without looking back. The door closed with a firmness that felt like punctuation to an argument I hadn't wanted to have. I sat at my kitchen table in the silence that followed, my untouched coffee growing cold. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Chen next door watering her garden. The rhythmic spray of water on concrete. Normal sounds from a normal day, but nothing felt normal anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation with Claire over the past months. The way she'd avoided eye contact when discussing repayment. The way Derek's smile never quite reached his eyes. The BMW. The designer handbag Claire had carried last month. The expensive restaurants she'd mentioned eating at by morning. I had made a decision. I called my neighbor's son, Marcus, who worked in IT. Marcus, I need a favor. Can you help me check something on my computer? He came over that afternoon, patient and kind as he showed me how to access my bank statements online, and how to look at Claire's social media pages. I'd never paid much attention to. What I found made my hands shake. Photos. Dozens of them, posted over the past 6 months. Claire and Derek at expensive restaurants. Claire showing off new jewelry, Derek at a golf course. A post from 3 weeks ago about their upgraded apartment with a view. Another about the investment property Derek was considering. And there, scheduled for next week. Can't wait for our dream vacation in Maui. #blessed #living our best life. I sat back in my chair, Marcus hovering uncertainly nearby. Mrs. Patterson, are you okay? I wasn't okay. My daughter had lied to me. She'd taken money meant for my security, my future, and used it to fund a lifestyle she wanted. And now she was going on a vacation that cost more than what she owed me. Acting as if I was the unreasonable one for mentioning repayment. Something hardened in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Something colder. Something that felt like clarity. Marcus, I said quietly, I need you to help me with one more thing. The plan formed slowly, carefully, the way ice forms on a winter pond, one thin layer at a time, until it's solid enough to hold weight. I spent the next 3 days thinking. Not in anger, though anger was there, burning quietly beneath the surface, but in calculation, in the kind of cold, clear-headed thinking that comes when you realize someone you love has betrayed you, and you need to decide what to do about it. Claire had mentioned they were leaving Friday morning. Their flight was at 6 a.m., which meant they'd leave their apartment around 3:30. She'd told me, back when we were still speaking warmly, that they'd be gone for 2 weeks. 14 days in paradise while I ate store-brand soup and kept my heat at 62 degrees. On Wednesday, I called Claire. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice cautious. Mom, Claire, honey, I'm sorry. The words tasted like ash, but I said them anyway. I was wrong to bring up the money. You're right, you and Derek have been through so much stress. You deserve this trip. Silence on the other end. Then, really, I worry about you. That's all. But I should trust that you know what you're doing with your life. I could hear the relief in her voice, the way it softened and warmed. Oh Mom, thank you. I knew you'd understand. I hated leaving things the way we did. Me too, sweetheart. Listen, I want to do something for you before you go. Mom, you don't have to, I want to. Let me stock your refrigerator for when you get back. Nothing fancy, just some basics so you don't have to worry about grocery shopping the minute you walk in the door. You'll be tired from traveling. That's really sweet, Mom. But you don't need to go to the trouble. It's no trouble at all, I insist. Just leave your spare key under the mat, like you used to. I'll go over on Saturday morning while you're gone and take care of everything. Another pause. I held my breath. Okay, she said finally. That would actually be really helpful. Thank you, Mom. Anything for you, honey. Have a wonderful trip. You and Derek enjoy every minute. After I hung up, I sat very still. My hands were steady. My heart was calm. I had crossed some invisible line, and there was no going back now. Thursday, I went to the grocery store. I bought milk, eggs, cheese, fresh vegetables, bread, butter, orange juice, all the things a well-stocked refrigerator should have. I spent $43. Money I'd budgeted carefully from my pension. But I bought something else too. At the craft store, 3 blocks away, I purchased a large poster board, the thick kind that doesn't bend easily, and markers, black, red, and blue. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea growing cold beside me, and I made my sign. My hands didn't shake. I wrote clearly, deliberately, in letters large enough to be read instantly the moment someone opened a refrigerator door. When I finished, I looked at what I'd created. 7 words that held 6 months of lies, manipulation, and betrayal. I placed the sign carefully on my kitchen counter, where I could see it, where it could remind me why I was doing this. Friday morning, I woke early. I made my coffee in my chipped mug and watched the sun rise through my kitchen window. Somewhere across the city, Claire and Derek were boarding a plane, settling into seats they'd bought with money that should have been returned to me months ago. They'd order drinks. They'd laugh. They'd take selfies with captions about being blessed, and I would wait. Saturday morning arrived with gray skies that threatened rain. I dressed carefully, my good jeans, a clean sweater, my comfortable walking shoes. I packed everything I needed into a canvas grocery bag. The food, the sign, packing tape, scissors. The drive to Claire's apartment took 47 minutes. I knew the route by heart. I'd driven it countless times over the years, bringing over home-cooked meals, helping them move in, celebrating birthdays. Their building was one of the new luxury developments downtown, all glass and steel and modern architecture, the kind of place with a doorman and a gym and a rooftop terrace, the kind of place that costs 3 times what my monthly pension provided. I found the spare key exactly where Claire said it would be, under the mat that read "Home Sweet Home." In cheerful script, The apartment was silent when I entered. Immaculate. Clearly they'd cleaned before leaving. The granite countertops sparkled. The hardwood floors gleamed. Fresh flowers sat in a vase on the dining table. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the city skyline spreading out like a promise. This was what my $5,000 had helped pay for. I moved through the apartment slowly, taking it in. The expensive furniture, the artwork on the walls, the designer coffee maker on the counter. In the bedroom, I saw the walk-in closet, packed with clothes that still had tags attached. Claire's shoe collection lined up like soldiers, easily 50 pairs, maybe more. I thought of my own closet. 4 pairs of shoes, total, 2 for summer, 2 for winter. In the kitchen, I unpacked the groceries, placing everything neatly in the refrigerator. Milk on the top shelf, eggs in the designated compartment, vegetables in the crisper. I worked methodically, making sure everything looked normal, natural, like any mother helping her daughter. Then I took out my sign. I positioned it carefully on the middle shelf, right at eye level. Impossible to miss the moment someone opened the refrigerator door. I used packing tape to secure it firmly to the back wall, making sure it wouldn't fall or shift. 7 words, written in thick black marker. I know you stole from me. Below that, in smaller red letters, I'd written the truth. All of it below the main message. In red letters that seemed to bleed across the white poster board, I had written, you borrowed $5,000 in September, promising to repay in 3 months. You've bought designer clothes, eaten at expensive restaurants, upgraded your apartment. You spent money on a Hawaii vacation instead of repaying your mother. I live on $1,200 a month. I've been skipping meals to make ends meet. While you post #blessed on social media, I keep my heat at 62 degrees. You lied to me, you used me, and you felt no shame. And at the bottom, in blue, when you're ready to talk like an adult, you know where to find me. Mom, I stood back and looked at my work. The refrigerator hummed softly in the quiet apartment. Through the windows, the gray sky had started to release a light drizzle, drops streaking down the glass like tears. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, no sadness, just a strange, hollow calm. Before I left, I did one more thing. I took a photograph of the sign in the refrigerator with my phone. Marcus had taught me how to do that too. Then I carefully locked the apartment behind me, placed the key back under the mat, and walked to my car. The drive home felt longer than usual, or maybe time had just changed shape. The way it does when you've done something you can't undo. The 2 weeks passed slowly. I went about my life as I always had. I tended my garden, pulling weeds and watering the tomato plants that were starting to yellow with the approaching autumn. I had lunch with my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who told me about her grandson's acceptance to medical school. I watched the news. I read library books. I waited. I didn't hear from Claire. No messages, no calls. But I knew they'd returned because on the day after their scheduled arrival, I saw new photos appear on her social media. Pictures of turquoise water and sunset cocktails. Claire in a flowing dress on a beach, Derek with his arm around her. Both of them tanned and smiling with the caption, refreshed and recharged. Back to reality but already missing paradise. I wondered if they'd gone to the apartment yet, if they'd opened the refrigerator, if they'd seen my message. I wondered, but I didn't reach out. 3 days after their return, my phone rang at 8:47 in the evening. I was watching a documentary about wolves, my tea cooling on the side table. I looked at the screen and saw Claire's name. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello, how could you? Her voice was shaking, but not with tears, with rage. Pure, undiluted rage. How could you do something so cruel, so humiliating? I set down my tea carefully. I stocked your refrigerator, like I promised. You know what I'm talking about. That sign. That horrible, vindictive sign. Every word on that sign is true. Claire. Derek saw it. He opened the fridge to get water, and he saw it. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? How could you try to turn my own husband against me? Something sparked in my chest. Turn him against you. Claire. I simply told the truth. If the truth makes you look bad, that's not my fault. You had no right. I had every right. My voice was quiet, but there was steel in it now. I'm your mother. I gave you $5,000 when you came to me crying, telling me you were about to be evicted, and you lied to me. We were struggling. Were you? I stood up, pacing my small living room. Were you really, Claire? Because the apartment I walked through didn't look like it belonged to someone struggling. The closet full of unworn designer clothes didn't look like a struggle. The vacation to Hawaii didn't look like a struggle. Silence on the other end. You wanted that money for your lifestyle, I continued, my voice steady. You wanted it so you could keep up appearances, keep living beyond your means. And you knew I'd give it to you if you cried and told me you needed it. So, you used me. I was going to pay you back when, Claire, when were you going to pay me back? After the Hawaii trip, after the next shopping spree, after the investment property Derek was bragging about online. You were stalking my social media. I was trying to understand why my daughter, who supposedly couldn't afford rent, was living like she'd won the lottery. I heard Derek's voice in the background, muffled, angry. Then Claire again. You know what, Mom? Maybe we did use the money differently than we said. But you gave it to us. It was a gift. The words hit like a slap. A gift, I repeated slowly. Yes, you gave it freely. We never signed anything. There's no contract. So legally, it was a gift. My hand tightened on the phone. I see. So that's how you're going to play this. I'm not playing anything. I'm stating facts. And the fact is, you're a bitter old woman who can't stand to see her daughter happy and successful. You've always been jealous of me. Jealous. The word came out as a laugh, sharp and hollow. Claire, I've sacrificed everything for you. Your entire life. I put you first. I wore the same winter coat for 15 years so you could have a prom dress. I worked overtime so you could go to college without loans. And you never let me forget it. Her voice cracked. Every time we talk, it's about your sacrifices. How hard you worked. How much you gave up. Do you know how exhausting that is? I stood in the middle of my living room, the phone pressed to my ear, and felt something break inside me. Not my heart. That had already broken. This was something deeper. The last thread of hope that my daughter was still the person I thought she was. You're right, I said quietly. I should have stopped reminding you. I should have let my actions speak for themselves. And now they have, I continued. That sign in your refrigerator, that's my action speaking. And I think it spoke pretty clearly. You're petty and vindictive. No, Claire, I'm done. There's a difference. I moved to my kitchen window, looking out at the darkened garden where my tomato plants swayed in the evening breeze. I spent 6 months making excuses for you. 6 months telling myself you were struggling, that you needed time. And all the while, you were spending money like water and telling yourself I was just a bitter old woman who should be grateful you even visited. That's not. I want my money back. The words came out flat. Final. I told you. There's no contract. I don't care about contracts, Claire. I care about what's right. You took $5,000 from your mother, knowing I live on $1,200 a month, knowing I budget every penny, and you used it to fund a lifestyle you can't afford. I paused, my voice dropping lower. I want my money back. All of it. Within 30 days, we don't have it. Then get it. Sell some of those unworn clothes. Return some of those shoes. Cancel whatever subscription services you're paying for. Cut back on the restaurants. Figure it out. And if we don't, her voice was defiant now, challenging, then everyone will know what you did. Silence. Heavy, thick silence. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. I'll tell your grandmother. I'll tell your aunts and uncles. I'll tell every single person in our family exactly what you did. How you lied. How you manipulated. How you stole from your own mother, and then called it a gift when you got caught. You wouldn't. Try me. My voice was ice cold now. You think that sign in your refrigerator was humiliating, Claire. That was just between you and Derek. Imagine what it will feel like when Grandma Rose asks you about it at Thanksgiving, when Uncle Tom brings it up at Christmas, when your cousins see you and wonder how you could do such a thing. You're a monster. No, I'm a mother who finally opened her eyes. I felt tears threatening, but I blinked them back. 30 days, Claire, $5,000, or I make sure everyone knows the truth about who you really are. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking now. I set the phone down on the counter and gripped the edge of the sink, breathing slowly, steadily. The documentary about wolves was still playing in the living room. The narrator's calm voice describing pack dynamics and survival strategies. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed replaying the conversation, hearing Claire's voice calling me bitter, jealous, a monster. Part of me wondered if she was right. What kind of mother puts a sign like that in her daughter's refrigerator? What kind of mother threatens to expose her child's worst behavior to the family? But then I thought about the groceries I hadn't bought because I'd given her that money. The heat I'd kept low even when my bones ached with cold. The medication I'd delayed refilling because I couldn't quite afford it yet. And I knew I wasn't the monster in this story. For days passed without a word. Then, on Tuesday afternoon, I received a text message from an unknown number. Mrs. Patterson, this is Derek. We need to talk. Can you meet me at Rosie's coffee shop tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Please come alone. I stared at the message for a long time. Rosie's coffee shop was the place Claire and I used to go when she was in high school. The place where we'd spent countless Saturday mornings, talking about boys and college plans and dreams for the future. I typed back, "I'll be there." The next day, I arrived 15 minutes early. Rosie's hadn't changed much over the years. Same red vinyl booths, same black and white checkered floor, same smell of coffee and bacon grease in the air. I ordered a tea and sat in the booth by the window, watching people pass by on the sidewalk outside. Derek arrived exactly at 2. He looked different than I remembered, thinner, maybe, or more tired. His expensive suit seemed slightly rumpled, and there were shadows under his eyes. He slid into the booth across from me without ordering anything. "Mrs. Patterson," he said. "Derek." He cleared his throat, looked down at his hands. "I need to apologize to you." I said nothing, just waited. "When Claire came to you asking for money, she didn't tell me the whole truth. She said she was borrowing $2,000, not $5, and she said you'd offered it, that you'd insisted on helping." He looked up at me, and I saw something genuine in his eyes. "Shame, maybe. I didn't know you were living on such a tight budget. I didn't know you were sacrificing your own comfort to help us." "But you knew about the Hawaii trip." "Yes." He nodded slowly. "My parents did pay for part of it. But Claire, she used some of your money to. She told me it was from a bonus at work." The words settled between us like stones. "Derek, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you really struggling financially? Or has this whole thing been about maintaining a lifestyle you can't afford?" He was quiet for a long moment. Outside, a young mother pushed a stroller past the window, her toddler pointing at something excitedly. Life continued, normal and ordinary, while we sat in this booth dealing with the wreckage of lies. "The second one," he finally admitted. "We got caught up in trying to look successful, trying to impress people. And somewhere along the way, we stopped being honest with ourselves about what we could actually afford." He rubbed his face with both hands. "That sign you left, it was like getting slapped awake. I realized I'd been going along with something really wrong." "Is that why you're here?" "To apologize." "Partially." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope, "but mainly to give you this." He slid the envelope across the table. I looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. "What is this?" $2,000. "It's not everything, but it's a start. I withdrew it from my savings this morning." My hand hovered over the envelope. "Claire knows you're doing this." Derek's jaw tightened. "She doesn't know I'm here. And honestly, I don't care if she gets angry. What we did to you was wrong, Mrs. Patterson. What she did was wrong, and I'm not going to be part of it anymore." I picked up the envelope, feeling its weight. Inside were 20 crisp $100 bills. $2,000. Almost half of what they owed me. "Derek, I need to understand something. Are you and Claire actually okay? Financially, I mean, are you really behind on rent? Or was that all a lie?" He looked down at his coffee cup, spinning it slowly between his hands. "We were never behind on rent. We've always paid on time. But we were living beyond our means. Claire has this thing about appearances, about looking successful, and I enabled it. I let her spend it because I didn't want to be the one who said no, the one who told her she couldn't have what she wanted. So my $5,000 went into maintaining an illusion." His voice was bitter now, but the bitterness seemed directed at himself. New furniture, clothes, dinners out, things we could have lived without, but convinced ourselves we needed. And when you asked about repayment, Claire kept saying we'd pay you back soon, that it wasn't urgent. She said you were fine, that you had your pension, that you didn't really need it. I'm living on $1,200 a month, Derek. I know that now. I didn't know it then. Claire never told me the details of your situation. She just said you were comfortable." He looked up at me, and I saw genuine anguish in his eyes. "Mrs. Patterson, I come from money. My parents are well off. I've never had to worry about making ends meet. So, when Claire said you were fine, I believed her. I didn't question it. I should have." A waitress came by, refilling my tea, asking Derek if he wanted anything. He shook his head, waited until she was gone. "After I saw that sign," he continued, "I started digging. I looked at our bank statements, really looked at them for the first time in months. Do you know what we spent in restaurants last month alone? $800. Almost as much as your entire monthly income. For restaurants." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. I felt sick. I still feel sick. "What did Claire say when you confronted her?" "She said you were being dramatic, that you'd always had a flair for guilt trips, that the sign was proof you were trying to manipulate her." He paused. And then she said something that really bothered me. She said, "My mother owes me for all the years she made me feel guilty for existing." The words hit me like a physical blow. I set down my tea carefully, afraid my shaking hands would spill it. Did she really say that? Word for word. And when I asked her what she meant, she went on this rant about how you've always been a martyr, always sacrificing, always making her feel like she was a burden. How every time she wanted something growing up, you'd sigh and talk about how you'd have to work extra shifts or skip buying things for yourself. He looked at me carefully. "Mrs. Patterson, was that true? Did you make her feel guilty?" I thought back over the years. At times, I'd come home exhausted from double shifts and mentioned I was tired. At the time I'd explained we couldn't afford something because money was tight. At the time, I'd worn my worn-out coat and Claire had asked why I didn't buy a new one. And I'd said something like, "Oh, this one's fine. Besides, you needed new shoes for school." "I never meant to," I said quietly. "I was just being honest about our situation. We didn't have much. I worked hard. And yes, I prioritized her needs over my wants. Because that's what parents do." That's what I said too. But she doesn't see it that way. She sees it as you holding your sacrifices over her head, using them as leverage to control her or make her feel obligated. So taking my money and lying about it, that was what payback. In her mind. Derek leaned back against the booth, looking suddenly exhausted. "I think she genuinely believes she deserves it. That you owe her for making her childhood about scarcity instead of abundance. That your struggles were your choice, and she shouldn't have to pay the price for them now." I sat with that for a moment. Outside, the autumn sun had broken through the clouds, casting long shadows across the street. Somewhere, a car alarm went off, then stopped. "Derek, why are you telling me all this?" "Because you deserve to know the truth, and because," he hesitated, then continued, "because I'm thinking about leaving her." The words hung in the air between us. "You're thinking about divorce?" "I'm thinking that I married someone I don't recognize anymore. Or maybe I'm just finally seeing who she really is." He pushed the envelope closer to me. "Take this. I'll get you the rest within the month. I promise. My parents are helping. They don't know the full story, but they know I need to make something right." "Does Claire know you're planning to leave?" "Not yet. I wanted to take care of this first. To make sure you got your money back, regardless of what happens between us." He stood up, leaving a $10 bill on the table for my tea, even though he hadn't ordered anything. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Patterson. For all of it. You raised your daughter the best you could. What she became, that's not on you." He walked out before I could respond, leaving me alone in the booth with an envelope full of cash and a swirl of emotions I couldn't quite name. I sat there for a long time after he left, watching people pass by outside, living their ordinary lives. I thought about Claire as a little girl, holding my hand as we walked to school. Claire, at her high school graduation, crying happy tears. Claire at her wedding, beautiful in white, telling me I was the best mother anyone could ask for. Where had that girl gone? Or had she ever really existed? Had I been so blinded by love that I'd never seen the selfishness growing beneath the surface? I drove home slowly, the envelope tucked in my purse. $2,000. It felt heavier than it should, weighted with everything it represented. Derek's guilt, Claire's betrayal, the fracturing of a marriage, the end of something I couldn't quite name. That evening, I deposited the money back into my account. Sandra at the bank smiled when she saw me. "Good news today, Mrs. Patterson." "Something like that," I said. The next 2 weeks were quiet. No calls from Claire. No texts. No Sunday visits with pastries. The silence in my house felt different now, not peaceful, but empty. I found myself setting the table for two out of habit on Sunday morning, then staring at the extra plate before putting it away. Mrs. Chen noticed. "Your daughter hasn't visited in a while," she said one afternoon as we pulled weeds in our adjacent gardens. "She's busy," I said automatically. Mrs. Chen looked at me with eyes that had seen 78 years of human nature. "Busy, or something else?" I told her. Not everything, but enough. About the money, the lies, the sign. She listened without interrupting, her weathered hands steady in the soil. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You know what I learned when my son stopped speaking to me for 3 years? That sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices. Even when it breaks your heart." "Did he come back?" "Your son?" "Eventually, but he had to hit rock bottom first. Had to lose everything before he could see what really mattered." She pulled out a particularly stubborn dandelion, roots and all. "The question isn't whether Claire will come back. The question is, what will you do if she doesn't?" I thought about that question for days. 3 weeks after my meeting with Derek, I received another envelope in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Inside was a cashier's check for $3,000 and a note on plain white paper, Mrs. Patterson. This is the remainder of what we owe you. My parents helped me with the final amount. They know everything now. My mother cried. My father said I should be ashamed, and he's right. I've filed for divorce. Claire doesn't know about this check. She thinks I'm being dramatic and cruel. She's convinced herself that you're the villain in this story, and I can't make her see otherwise. I hope someday she wakes up. For her sake, not just yours. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to see the truth sooner.
Derek, I held the check in my hands, feeling the weight of closure. $5,000 returned in full. The money that had cost me so much more than its dollar value. I deposited it the next day. My account balance looked healthier than it had in months. I could turn the heat up now, buy good coffee, get that new winter coat I'd been eyeing, but somehow the money didn't feel the way I'd expected it to. It felt like compensation, not victory, like a settlement, not justice. 2 days later, my phone rang. Claire. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to the message, her voice small and broken in a way I hadn't heard since she was a child. Mom, Derek left me. He moved out 3 days ago. He won't answer my calls. His parents won't talk to me. Everyone is acting like I'm this terrible person, and I don't understand why. A pause, then. I need you, please. Can you call me back? I saved the message but didn't call. 3 more calls came over the next week, each one more desperate than the last. The final one came at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Fine, I get it. You're punishing me. You and Derek and everyone else. You all think I'm the bad guy here. But you know what, Mom? I was just trying to survive. I was just trying to build a life. And maybe I made mistakes, but at least I didn't spend my whole life being bitter and small and afraid to want more. Her voice cracked. At least I tried to be happy. The message ended. I sat in my dark living room, the blue light from my phone screen the only illumination, and I cried. Not for the money, not even for the betrayal, but for the daughter I'd raised, who thought that happiness came from designer clothes and expensive vacations, who thought that wanting more meant taking from the people who loved you. Where had I gone wrong? Or had I gone wrong at all? I thought about calling her back, thought about driving to her apartment, holding her while she cried, telling her everything would be okay the way I'd done when she was small, and the world seemed too big and frightening. But Mrs. Chen's words echoed in my mind. Sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices. So I didn't call, and I didn't drive to her apartment. Instead, I wrote her a letter. A real letter on paper, with a pen. The way we used to communicate before everything became texts and emails and instant messages. Dear Claire, I received your messages. I know Derek left, and I know you're hurting. Part of me wants to rush to your side the way I always have. But another part, the part that's been growing stronger these past few months, knows that you need to sit with this feeling. You need to understand what it's like to lose something because of your own choices. You took money from me and lied about what you needed it for. When I discovered the truth, you didn't apologize. You defended yourself. You made yourself the victim. And even now, in your messages, you're still doing it. You're still finding ways to blame everyone else for consequences that are entirely your own. I don't know if you'll ever understand what you did. Maybe you will, years from now, when you're older and you look back with clearer eyes. Maybe you won't. But either way, I need you to know this. I will always be your mother. I will always love you. But I will not be used again. When you're ready to take real responsibility, not just say sorry because you're hurting, but to truly understand and acknowledge what you did, I'll be here. My door is open. My phone works. But I won't chase you. I won't rescue you from the consequences you've earned. You said you were trying to be happy. But Claire, happiness built on lies and other people's sacrifices isn't real happiness. It's just an expensive house of cards, and it always falls eventually. I hope you find real happiness someday. The kind that doesn't require taking from others. The kind that comes from being a person you can be proud of. I love you. I always will, but I love myself too, and I'm done apologizing for that. Mom, I mailed the letter the next morning. I don't know if she read it. She never responded. Months passed. Winter came, then melted into spring. I kept my heat at a comfortable 70 degrees. I bought a new coat, nothing fancy, but warm and well-made. I had coffee with Mrs. Chen every Thursday. I volunteered at the library on Tuesdays. I planted new flowers in my garden, bright yellow daffodils that nodded in the breeze. My Sundays were quiet now. No pastries, no daughter at my kitchen table. But they were peaceful too, in a way they hadn't been before. I read books. I took walks. I learned that solitude and loneliness weren't the same thing. Sometimes I wonder if Claire ever thinks about that sign in her refrigerator. If she remembers the moment she opened the door and saw the truth staring back at her. I wonder if she's learned anything, or if she's simply found new people to blame for the way her life turned out. But mostly, I've stopped wondering. I've stopped waiting for the apology that may never come, stopped hoping for the daughter I thought I had to reappear. I learned something important through all of this. You can love someone with your whole heart and still protect yourself from them. You can be a good mother without being a doormat. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their choices, even when every instinct screams at you to rescue them. My pension is back where it should be. My heart stays on. I sleep well at night. And if Claire ever does come back, truly come back, with genuine understanding and real accountability, I'll be here. The door isn't locked. It's just no longer wide open. Because I finally learned that I matter too. So I'll ask you this. If your child took advantage of you, would you have done what I did? Or would you have kept forgiving, kept giving, kept pretending that love means accepting disrespect? Sometimes the hardest part of being a mother isn't knowing when to hold on. It's knowing when to let go.